So in the third chapter, Krishna was telling about Karma Yoga. And in this fourth chapter, he's talking about transcendental knowledge. In this chapter, Krishna tells how this knowledge was going in disciplic succession, and Krishna had given it to the sun god. And then Vivaswan, Manu, Ikshvaku, so on and so forth. It was going on. And then now Krishna is giving this knowledge to Arjuna. And Krishna appears uh, from time to time. Both the living entities as well as the Lord appears. But there is a difference. Krishna's appearance is not forced. It is by his own arrangement, his own divine arrangement is why he appears. And when we appear, we are forced to take whatever body the nature gives us based upon our previous karmas. But for Krishna, it's not like that. Krishna has a purpose for which he appears, and most people cannot understand this. Even now, if you see many people, they think, no, no, no. Krishna also, Ram also, they have to go through their karma. That is actually a classic example of ignorance, that they do not know how God is, what is his activities, how does he appear, all these things they don't know, even though they may appear they are very knowledgeable, they know some scriptures, but actually they do not have the proper understanding. And therefore Krishna is saying here that anybody who actually understands about the signs of Krishna's appearance and his activities and all of these things, that person never has to take birth again. Krishna appears from time to time in every millennia, every yuga, when the religiosity or dharma is in danger, when it is attacked. And he protect the devotees and he annihilate the miscreants. And he protects dharma. Uh, so this is all what was talked about. And then he talks about those who are great personalities, those who are following, those who are actually knowing the Lord. They don't have to take birth again. And depending upon the extent to which one takes shelter of Krishna, Krishna reciprocates. If one is completely taking shelter of Krishna, Krishna completely gives himself to that person. So it is just like, to the extent a living entity wants to be under Krishna's control, to that extent Krishna wants to give his own control to that person. And then it is talked about that some people don't come to Krishna, they go to demigods. Why? Because they think, oh, if we please the demigods quickly, we can get results. And like this, people have different modes of nature which are governing them: mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and mode of goodness. These are the three modes or the forces or the ropes which are controlling the living entities, everybody. And based upon these, Krishna tells how the society is divided into four varnas and four ashramas. So, what are the four varnas? Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And four ashramas are Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. But Krishna is not bound by any of these. It's not that Krishna is Kshatriya or Vaishya. No, Krishna is beyond all of this. And intelligent people, those who understand, they do their duties in accordance with this transcendental knowledge or Divya Gyan. And if you see, karma is a very, very difficult topic to understand. Karma, akarma, vikarma. People want to know why this is happening to me, why this thing happened to me. So that cannot be really understood um, by mundane calculation, because the intricacies of karma are very difficult to understand. So many different things are happening. And in simple way, we can, Krishna simplifies it, and we can understand from Bhagavad Gita, karma, akarma, and vikarma. These are the three sections. So, what is vikarma? Who will tell? We've discussed this so many times now. So, I can just ask devotees to answer. So, what is vikarma?
Bad karma.
Yes. So, any bad activity which has a bad result, which has an undesirable result from material calculation, or in simple words, which leads to sin or pap, that is called as vikarma. So, can anybody give an example of vikarma? Who will give an example?
Alcoholism, gambling.
Yes, alcoholism, gambling, thievery, killing for no reason or for selfish reason. So many such examples are there. So this is vikarma. And what is karma in this context? Karma can have different meanings in different contexts. What does karma means in this context? Can anybody tell?
Actions as per Shastra.
So karma could be any activity which is pious. Let's say somebody um, feeds a hungry person. That is a pious activity. Or somebody gives charity to a beggar, or somebody gives clothes to somebody who doesn't have any clothes. Uh, Give water if somebody is thirsty. These are all pious activities which one is doing. So that will give you pious results. That will not give you pap. That may give you some similar benefits. Let's say if you give food to somebody, then you will not be hungry, or if you are hungry, you will be provided with food. Similarly, if you give thirsty water, when you are thirsty, you will get water. So, this is how pious activities are rewarded. So, that is karma. And then, what is a karma?
Detached activity.
Okay. So, a karma means that activity for which you will not get any reaction. So, initially, we talked about V karma means sinful reaction. You will get sinful reaction for those. We talked about karma, you'll get pious or good reactions for this. Karma means no reaction. So, no reaction means it can happen in two ways. One is it has, you do no karma, and that's not, practically possible, right? Because even if you're sitting just idly, you're still doing something. Your mind is active, your body is active inside, so many things are happening. But the real meaning of karma is doing spiritual activities which generate no material reactions. So, no good reactions, no bad reactions. That is why karma means karma is actually not there. So, karma is basically spiritual activity, or in simple words, activities done for the pleasure of Krishna or God. If you're doing something for the pleasure of God, for the pleasure of Krishna, that doesn't generate any karmic reactions. It actually helps one to advance spiritually. And all the previous karmas which we may have, they get burnt off. So, karma means purifying us of all the karma. So, whether it's good activity or bad activity, they don't cancel each other. That, okay, I did some vikarma, I did some karma, some pious activities, some good activities, some bad activities. They should cancel each other. No, doesn't happen. For good activities, you'll get good results. For bad activities, you'll get bad results. But if you do a karma, then both good and bad activities, they get nullified, because now you have no business in staying in the material world. You're working on packing up from here and going to the spiritual world, going to the world where you actually have only happiness. That is the whole idea of getting out of here, that you are no more in any misery. So that is called as Vaikuntha. So this is action, inaction, and basically this is karma, karma, and vikarma. Uh, and Great personalities, great sages have used this transcendental knowledge to advance spiritually, and they have overcome whatever tendencies they may have for attachment or for detachment or for attraction towards fruitive activities. And in this way, they are actually advancing, perfectly controlling the senses and giving up all the um, uh, un, um, those things which are barriers, giving up all the barriers which may be there for advancing spiritually. And they're satisfied with what comes on its own accord, free from dualities. And such people are practicing Krishna consciousness. That is the fastest way to attain this platform. So, this is what we were discussing previously. Now, in this section, 24, 25, 26, and so on, Krishna is using different activities and comparing it to how a fire sacrifice is done. And he's saying that these different activities are also sacrifice in their own way. They are also yajna. Just like one is doing fire yajna, you have to have, you know, havan kund, and you have to have samagri, you have to have ghee, you have to have brahmans, you have to have, offering which is to be put in the fire. So similarly, these are practiced in different ways by different people. So we'll discuss more on that. So we have discussed till 25th in our previous sessions, and I've uploaded the videos. So whoever would like to get into it more can watch those sessions. But we'll get started with 26th. Before we start, anybody wants to ask any questions, make any points, or have any burning uh, things to share?
Just a clarification. So when you explained a karma, so it's basically the detachment. I remember in my notes it says detachment. So detachment is basically from the material world and giving it to the spirituality, like focusing on the spirituality and doing spiritual work. But detachment here implied that you are detached from the material world, not expecting any return, or you are not putting in your work on the basis of condition, but it is just doing the spirituality. But yeah, I'm just trying to understand clearly the word detachment implies here. That's all.
Yes, so that's a good question. So there are two things. Detachment is perfectly true, but detachment from material things. But you have to have attachment also, attachment to spiritual things. So if you attach to spiritual activities, if you're attached to Krishna and you're detached from material activities, selfishness, and you are focusing on spiritual advancement, then that is perfect akarma.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
can I guess, ask a question and maybe elaborate on this?
Please.
So I guess in terms of detachment, you can have detachment to ego, craving, praise, and things like that. But for example, maybe an evil, vile person may have detachment to their own emotions and commit certain acts without having any remorse. May feel detached, but because they're not on the path of like virtue or God, that's a different type of detachment, I'm assuming. Or is that not detachment at all?
Can you repeat the second part? I did not understand the
So
question.
there are people that are detached. I mean, when we meet them as patients sometimes, that they're very detached to their emotions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're detached to consequences. They're detached to outcomes. They behave.
Mm-hmm.
They do evil or vile acts, but then they don't necessarily, like, I can think of like criminals or
Yeah.
we have an
So
antisocial personality disorder, I guess. That's
sure,
those
sure,
people
sure,
tend to be
sure.
detached, right? But they're not
So
attached to virtue or path to godliness. So,
yeah, so I
are they
understood your
detached?
question
That's
now.
my question.
That's a great question, actually. So there is a thin line between lack of responsible behavior and quote unquote, thinking detached. Detachment is not when one is irresponsibly behaving or acting irresponsibly without really being concerned about the consequences. Detachment, basically, like you rightly mentioned, is from those urges which, even though are wanting me to act in a certain manner, but I have control over them and I'm not wanting to, you know, uh, get into the situation where they will be dictating me. Detachment means now I can control how I have to act in the right manner rather than being controlled by the urges to make me act in a certain manner. Does it make sense? So it is totally different than what people may do who are appearing to be detached from the consequences and acting irresponsibly, antisocially, and in a criminal mindset. That's totally opposite. That's actually um, case of vikarma.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Okay. Anybody else would like to ask anything or share any thoughts on this? Okay, so we'll go to 26. Please repeat after me. Shrotradirindriyanyanye. Shrotradirindriyanyanye. Samyam agnishu juhvati. Samyam agnishu juhvati.
शब्दादिविषयानन्य
Shabdadin vishayan anya. Shabdadin vishayan
शब्दादिविषयानन्य
Indriyagnishu juhvati.
इन्द्रियाणि सुजुहति.
Any volunteers who would like to read the translation?
I can read if
Yes,
nobody
please.
some the unadulterated brahmacharis sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Purport. The members of the four divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, and the sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharis, or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master, control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harir Namanukritnam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society, but a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society because that is the way for restricted sex life. This restricted and attached sex life is also a kind of yagna because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for reading. Okay. So basically, they are explaining how brahmachari is also doing yajna and grahastas or householders, they are also doing yajna. What is the yajna for brahmachari? Brahmachari is engaged in strict life of control of senses, hearing about God, about Krishna, and engaging in activities which are going to advance him spiritually for service towards Krishna. And then this way they are advancing. What about the householders or those who are married with family? They also are doing yajna. What is their yajna? They are engaging their senses. So for them, there is certain allowance for utilization of senses, but the idea is that they use it in the service of Lord and they bring up nice family, nice children who are trained properly how to practice the Krishna conscious process. And this way, this whole marriage also becomes a yajna, the whole life. But it has to be done in discipline, in restricted householder here, Prabhupada mentions. So it is not that unrestrictedly they are engaging. They have to follow rules and regulations and restrict to what is necessary. So this is how they are advancing. We'll go to the next shloka. Anything anybody would like to ask or share in this?
So here Prabhupada is basically talking about the Grihastha ashram. I'm trying to understand which ashrama he's focusing on. Okay.
So first one is in the shloka itself, it is mentioned. First is Brahmacharya ashram, then the second is the Grihastha ashram. So Prabhupada is saying the same thing. The Brahmacharya ashram means you have to be very strict. The training is for sense control, for controlling oneself. And then the next ashram after Brahmacharya is Grihastha ashram, where one can use the senses, but has to be done in a Krishna conscious manner. Does it answer your question?
Yes, Prabhuji, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll go to the next one, 27. Sarvanindriya karmani. Sarvanindriya karmani. Prana karmani cha pare.
प्राणकर्माणि चापरे
Atma samyam yogagnau.
आत्मसंयम योगाग्नो
Juhvati jnana deepite.
जुह्यति ज्ञानदीपिते.
Any volunteers who would like to read?
I can read.
Translation? Yes, please.
Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through the control of the mind and the senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as obligations into the fire of controlled mind. Purport: the yoga system conceived by Patanjali is referred to herein. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyagatma and Paragatma. As long as the soul is attached to self-enjoyment, it is what is called Paragatma. But as soon as the same soul becomes detached from sense enjoyment, it is called Pratyagatma. The soul is subjected to the functions of 10 kinds of air at work within the body, and this is perceived through the breathing system. But the Patanjali system of yoga instructs one on how to control the functions of the body's air in a technical manner so that unlimited ultimately all the functions of the air within the become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. According to the yoga system, pratyag atma is the ultimate goal. This pratyag atma is withdrawn from activities and matter. The senses interact with the sense objects like the ear for hearing, eyes for seeing, and nose for smelling, tongue for tasting, hand for touching, and all of them are thus engaged in activities outside the self. They are called the functions of the pran vayu. The apan vayu goes downwards, and the vyana vayu acts to shrink and expand. The samana vayu adjusts equilibrium. Udana vayu goes upwards, and when one is enlightened, one engages all of these in searching for self-realization.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So here, this is a different type of yajna now. So previously we discussed about brahmacharya, grahastha. Now they are talking specifically about a yogi. Yogi who is practicing Patanjali's yoga system, which is the Ashtanga yoga system, where by different steps and different means, a yogi is controlling the mind. So what is mentioned here? Those who are interested in achieving self-realization through controlling the mind and senses offer the function of all the senses of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. So when we understand through the purport here, Prabhupada is explaining that there are souls which are paragatma, which means people are attached to sense enjoyment. So they are called as paragatma. And then when they advance and become detached from sense enjoyment, that those souls are called as pratyag atma. So two atmas are mentioned: pratyagatma, paragatma. Paragatma attached to sense enjoyment. Pratyagatma, they are detached from sense enjoyment. So what is this yoga system doing? So there are different kinds of airs. Vayu, like you may hear many times in Ayurveda or in yoga system, they talk about these vayus. So pran, apan, saman, vayan, udan, these are different vayus which are conducting the various activities or bodily functions. Pran vayu is very closely attached to the soul. That's why when a person dies, many times they say pran nikal gaye uske. So prana nikal gaye means the prana vayu is very closely there with the soul, has gone. And Prabhupada has mentioned here different vayus, they have different functions. So this is a detailed subject matter which Prabhupada is not going here in much details, but has mentioned just briefly that these different vayus have different functions to be done within the body. And basically, the regulation of a yogi is to control mind, senses, breathing, these vayus. They can actually use it for their benefit to advance spiritually. So, what are they doing? They are offering the controlled of the senses. They are controlling the mind and the senses and offering the functions of these and of the life breath as oblation to the fire of controlled mind. So this is basically a comparison being made here of how in yajna you put ghee and ahuti and everything, and here the yajna is controlling of the mind, and the offering is the functions of the senses and the life breath. So this is also yajna. Is it okay? Should we go forward?
I have question.
Yes.
So
Please tell me.
then, yeah, I just want to see that paragraph. So then the Pratyag Atma, so basically it's differentiating between Parag Atma and Pratyag Atma. And then is saying that Pratyag Atma is the senses are interacting with the sense objects like ear, hearing, eyes, and am I clear on that?
Yeah, so that's the general tendency of Paragatma, that the senses will be attracted, attached, and going in the direction of whatever they find pleasing. On the other hand, Pratyagatma is the soul where they have been able to control now the senses. So they will not get, you know, um, distracted by the different senses. And how to do that is the Patanjali's yoga system, by controlling the life force, by controlling the breathing, the asanas, the pranayams, and all. By that, they will be able to adjust their vayus as well as control their senses.
But then the one that I need a little bit more clarification is this engage in activities outside the self. So I mean, how it is outside the self if your senses are interacting with the sense objects. So if you could clarify or explain that one a little more.
Sure, sure. So, so the soul is subjected to the functions of 10 kinds of air at work within the body, and this is perceived through the breathing system. Patanjali's system of yoga instructs on how to control the function of the body's air in a technical manner, so that ultimately all the functions of the air within become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. According to this, Pratyag Atma is the ultimate goal, and Pratyagatma is withdrawn from activities in matter. Senses interact with the sense objects like that of hearing, ear for hearing, eyes for seeing, nose for smelling, tongue for tasting, and hand for touching. And all of them are thus engaged in activities outside the self. So, what this basically means here is the question.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, outside the self means, when you see the self, basically means our spiritual self, and what is going on within the self is, more spiritually. Outside means when we are perceiving things which are coming to us. Let's say if something is coming, how we are doing by seeing from outside, or something which we are hearing, that is from outside. Or if one is tasting something, the food came from outside. So basically they are all called as Gyan Indriyas, knowledge acquiring senses in Sanskrit. They are getting the knowledge from what all is happening outside us, basically to this body. So that is outside the self. They are not the need, or they are only in connection with the body. They are not with the soul.
Okay.
Is
I
it
got
making sense?
Sure, sure.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the next question. Okay. So we'll do this one also, 28th. Dravya yagnastapo yagna. Dravya yagnastapo
Yagna.
yoga yagnastatha pare.
Yoga Yajnastha Pare.
Swadhyaya jnana yagnascha.
Swadhyaya Yajnascha.
Yattayah samshita vrataha. Yattayah samshita vrataha. Any volunteers who would like to read the translation and purport? Okay, I can read the translation. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and other by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas. to advance in transcendental knowledge. So now Krishna is talking about the other situations where one may be doing different other things, but that is also yajna. So let's read the purport. These sacrifices may be fitted into various divisions. There are persons who are sacrificing their possessions in the form of various kinds of charities. In India, rich mercantile community or princely orders open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmashala, Annakshetra, Atithishala, Anathalaya, and Vidyapit. So these are various pious activities, if you see. These are various activities which are philanthropic activities, where people are doing some sort of a charity. And Krishna is pointing about these people also, that some people are doing charity, whatever they possess, they are giving that for some better work. And this is done in India, this is also done in America or other countries. People give charity for hospitals, old age homes, and other charitable foundations, distributing food, education, medical treatment, free to the poor people. And then Prabhupada explains all these charitable activities are called Dravya Yagya. There are others who, for higher elevation in life or for promotion to higher planets within the universe, voluntarily accept many kinds of austerities such as Chandrayan and Chaturmasya. These processes entail severe vows for conducting life under certain rigid rules. For example, under the Chaturmasya vow, the candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year, July to October. He does not eat certain foods, does not eat twice in a day, or does not leave home. Such sacrifices of the comfort of life is called tapomaya yajna. There are still others who engage themselves in different kinds of mystic yogas, like the Patanjali yoga system, for merging into the existence of the absolute, or Hatha yoga or Ashtanga yoga for particular perfections. And some travel to all the sanctified places of pilgrimage. All these practices are called as yoga yajna, sacrifice for a certain type of perfection in the material world. Okay, so let's just discuss till here. So here, what is happening? These are different activities which people are doing. Some people are doing charities for Dharmshala, Nakshetra, hospitals, home, charitable foundations. This is all called as Dravya Maya Yagya. So this is also a Yagya. Why? Because they are sacrificing. What are they sacrificing? They're sacrificing their possessions. Whatever they are possessing, they are sacrificing. And then other people are doing what is called as Tapomaya Yagya. They are doing tapasya. What kind of tapasya? They are doing austerities like following rules of Chandrayan and Chaturmasya. So Chaturmasya, Prabhupada is explaining here, is 4 months, which comes usually from July to October, November time period. And what happens during this time? This time, those who are practitioners of tapasya in this Chaturmasya vow, who take this vrata, they will do severe austerities. They will not eat certain foods, or they will eat very limited, or once a day, or sleep on the floor, do not shave. So things like this, they'll do the austerities. And then there are others, which is the Hatha yoga or Ashtanga yoga practitioners, and they are doing all the different sections. And that is also Yoga Yagya. And some of them travel to sanctified places of pilgrimage, Tirth Yatra, and all of this. And the others will do Swadhyaya Yagya. What is Swadhyaya Yagya? Swadhyaya, going deep, immersing into understanding the Vedic literatures, the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, so on and so forth. So that's Swadhyaya Yagya. So they are also doing sacrifice. All these yogis are fully engaged in different types of sacrifices and are seeking a higher status of Krishna consciousness. However, is different from these sorry, and they are seeking for higher status of life. Now, what is the difference between them and Krishna conscious people? So Prabhupada here is explaining that these people have certain motives. And what about Krishna conscious? Krishna conscious people, Prabhupada is saying Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is direct service to the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any of the above mentioned types of sacrifices, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. So, Krishna consciousness is divya. Krishna consciousness is beyond all of these. Why? Because you cannot get Krishna consciousness by any of the tapasyas or rituals or yogas or practices. Those things may have their own place, but Krishna consciousness only comes by the mercy of Krishna and the devotees. If you learn from devotees, if you are eager to get this, Krishna may give you entrance into this. This is like the inner circle of Krishna. This is like the most closest people to Krishna. So, like a king may have dealings to do with the whole kingdom, but then for his own son, for his own daughter, the king will have a totally different attitude. Or his own family member, there will be different rules. Many places, certain rules do not apply to the king or the queen of that country. So, like that, for Krishna, the pure devotees, they are like Krishna's own family. So, we can actually enter and be that family of Krishna. And for that, we have to just practice Krishna consciousness. So, we'll just summarize quickly because of lack of time. I will just summarize quickly and I'll take questions afterward. So, here we see, let me just quickly give me 1 second. Let me just enlarge this first. I'm trying to share the screen again. Okay. So now everybody can see, right? So basically, we'll revise 25 to 27 and 28 quickly. So in 25, Krishna talks about yogis. So Krishna says some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of supreme Brahman. So we had discussed in that how there are two paths of worshippers. Some are worshipping the demigods, and some are worshipping the supreme personality in the form of Brahman, which is the all existing power. So, what about the ones who are worshipping the demigods? Well, they want material benefits. They want quickly material desires to be fulfilled. They want to graduate, or when they go out of the earth, they want to go to higher planets like Swarglok and so on. So many times you see people, if somebody dies, they say Swargvasi. Swargvasi means he has gone to the heaven. So that is the highest which ordinary people can think of. They can only think of till Swarga. They cannot think of going back to Krishna or going to the Vaikuntha planets. Why? Because they have no knowledge. So this is like somebody approaching a government minister for temporary favors, temporary benefits. So you do some chaplusi to that person, some buttering, and then you want to get favors from some constable or some lower ranking officer of the government. and somebody who is actually seeing the Supreme Lord as Brahman, as all existing everywhere. What about that person? What is the target for that person? That person is looking for spiritual liberation. So, what is their drive? Their drive is actually they want to merge into the Supreme and actually become the controller. And what are they doing? They are sacrificing their own identity. They are saying, I will be that. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. And what they are doing, they are giving that whole identity into the fire of Supreme Absolute. So basically, they are detaching themselves from their real identity. Now, this is not the highest. The Brahman worship is not the highest. We are just talking about the different people who are engaged in different kind of activities. Okay. And then karma, jnana, and bhakti. These were the three sections we had discussed, and how these can actually lead to Krishna. So, if one is worshipping demigods, or one is worshipping Brahman, or one is trying to uh, take to the path of karma kanda, or karma yoga, or jnana yoga, they are all within the realm of spiritual advancement, but they are at a different stage. The highest stage is the bhakti yoga, which is ultimately seeking the loving service for Krishna. And in the sixth shloka, we discussed that how unadulterated brahmacharis, they sacrifice hearing process in and the senses in the fire of mind control and mental control. And the regulated householders, they sacrifice the objects of senses in the fire of senses, which means they uses the senses but for the process of Krishna consciousness. So we discussed how brahmacharis, they are doing control of hearing. They are not just letting their mind and senses get drained. So they are not focusing on gossips, temptations, mundane things, but they are focusing their hearing process on transcendental sound. They are chanting mantras, they are hearing about God. So this is what they are doing. So what is their fuel, their fire? Their fire is mental control, mind control. And their fuel is the process of hearing. And the strict brahmachari, they only hear the words concerning Krishna, and mundane sounds, they are not too interested in that. What about the householders? Well, householders have certain duties, and because of that, they can use their senses. So they use their sense objects, they use the senses to be in touch with sense objects, but in a regulated way dharmically. And let's say food, they offer food to God and then accept prasadam. They engage in senses for the satisfaction of the Lord. So this is the way they purify their senses. Now, this is a famous story we have discussed so many times, how Ambrish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. Ambrish Maharaj was a great devotee, he was a king, and he was engaged in using his senses in so many ways in the service of the Lord. He had so much money, he has palace of so many expensive things there, ornaments to glorify, but his mind was focused on Krishna. And on the other hand, Durvasa Muni, he was a renunciant, he was detached, he was not attached to anything, but he had a big ego which he was attached to. And because he did not like something, he cursed. And he did not have the devotion which Ambrish had. And therefore, Durvasa Muni had to run all over the whole creation and finally come and fall at the lotus feet of the great devotee. And then only he was able to come out of the dangerous situation. So that was Dharvasa Muni. So we see that both control of senses and engagement of senses in a Krishna conscious manner, both can actually lead to desired consequence. But if we control the senses but don't engage in the service of Krishna, then it can actually falsely increase one's ego and one can get into trouble like Durvasa Muni. ठीक है ना? And then we discussed in 4.27 about the sacrifice of Ashtanga Yoga. Those are interested in controlling the senses in air, in their breathing, in the Vayu. And this way, they are advancing. So here we discussed how the different yoga processes are different stages of the ladder. So conditioned life is the lowest level. Then karma yoga, because you want to do karma, connect it with God. Then jnana yoga, understand knowledge and try to use it in connection with God. Then ashtanga yoga, control the mind and senses and bring it in the service of the Lord. And finally, love God and act as what is needed for the service of God. That is bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga is most pleasing to Krishna because now you're directly loving God. So God is having the same reciprocation like a person, like any of us. We will love somebody who loves us. Similarly, God loves the devotee because the devotee loves God. So in the Ashtanga Yoga process, there is merging of breath and senses. There are pran, apan, saman, vayan, udan. These different vayus are regulated and senses are uh, controlled by pulling senses away from external objects. This is called as pratyahar or sense withdrawal. So here the fire is mind control and the fuel is functions of life, breath, and senses. So the fire lit by knowledge, renunciation without knowledge is dry, transcendental knowledge. So dry renunciation fails. Fire of yoga must be lit by knowledge. I'm a spirit soul, not the body, and my nature is to be the servant of Krishna. So this is just to summarize these these different examples which Krishna had given in the previous shlokas. So the practitioner is in the 4.25 is the karma yogi or jnani. The fire is the supreme Brahman. The offering is false ego and the self. Then in 4.26, the practitioner is the brahmachari, the fire is the mind control, and the fuel or the offering is the hearing and the senses. So why we are talking about fire and fuel? Because this is what we do in the yajna, right? We have the fire and then we have the ghee or the ahuti or the samagri. So that is the fuel. So that is the comparison which is happening with the yajna. So brahmachari, the fire is mental control and the offering is hearing process. Householder, the fire is senses, offering is sense objects. Ashtanga yogi, the fire is controlled mind and the offering is life breath. Is it making sense? Any questions so far? So basically everything is coming to culmination is Krishna consciousness. Yes, somebody is asking question.
I was going to ask, so in a bhakti yoga, then, I think what basically my idea is to summarize, after you summarize everything, was like, so what I got was like, Krishna consciousness is the supreme. But does that mean, should we not get involved into doing the yogas, the Ashtanga yoga and other yogas, as part of moving towards Krishna consciousness, or should it be just bipolar, meaning you do this and you don't do that, or you do all of them? And so how we pave our path? So that's the bigger question.
So that's a great question. So how do we pave our path? So it's not bipolar, it is linear. So you see here, there is a ladder
and ladder has different stages. So depending upon whichever stage one is, one can come to Bhakti Yoga. One does not have to go in the same order. It's not that if you are in the conditioned life, you necessarily need to first practice Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, then Ashtanga Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga. No. You can directly actually come to Bhakti Yoga, and all the other spiritual advancement will be included in that. Because let's say if you are doing Bhakti Yoga, you will automatically work for Krishna. When you're doing Bhakti Yoga, you will automatically inculcate jnana or knowledge for Krishna. When you're practicing Bhakti Yoga, you're automatically engage in chanting of mantras and rules and activities which will be equivalent or better than the other yoga processes, including the Ashtanga Yoga. So it's not that you are doing bipolar, it is what stage you are at. You start from wherever you are and you can advance. If somebody is already practicing Ashtanga Yoga, that's great. If somebody is already practicing Jnana Yoga, that's great. They are already at a higher stage. So for them to go to Bhakti Yoga will be easier and smoother. But if somebody is in conditioned life and they start now and then they practice Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, they'll probably not be able to come to Bhakti Yoga, because each of these yoga processes will take time. So therefore, wherever you are, you can directly go to the highest level. Now, what about then the yoga which people do in their daily life and everything? Is that something not to do? That is purely, if you see, is done for health related reasons. They are not doing it because they are going to be able to become spiritually advanced. Because if you see, the process of spiritual advancement using Ashtanga Yoga is automatically going to give you health benefits, but it is very difficult to be done for spiritual benefits. And that will come in the 6th chapter, where Krishna will explain how to control the mind and also how to do that process. And both Krishna and Arjuna do not emphasize on the process, because Arjuna says, this is not for me. Because you are telling me that I have to go in the forest, I have to meditate in this way, I have to stay without the family and all of these things. This is not practical. So if it was not practical for Arjuna in those days, who was used to living in the forest, how is it going to be practical for us? We can't even stay outside of our home, for one night. If we have to stay, we'll be very scared, even in the grass. So how are we going to live in the forest for many, many days, weeks to practice the Ashtanga Yoga? So Krishna will explain that, and the process of yoga which people follow for health reason, there's no harm in doing it, because it's just like taking medicine. You're not healthy, you take some medicine, whether Ayurveda or allopathy. Similarly, you do yoga for that, so for health benefits. So there's no problem in doing those things. In fact, that can help you in getting better mind control, so that you can become better in your bhakti yoga process. But it's not a necessity. Does it answer your question?
It does. I think sometimes I hear from people like those who claim themselves as atheists, they say like, oh, I do yoga, but I'm not into the spirituality
Correct.
or religion or anything like that. So that's what make me call it bipolar, like, or bifurcated. Like, okay, you are, so there is bhakti there, but you explained it very well, and this figure definitely helps. It's basically moving upward for sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Excellent question. Okay, great. Anybody else would like to share anything in this context? Okay, so the culmination is bhakti. If we are doing this, then all the other things will be taken care. So now it's self-reflection. So where are we? We are doing material indulgence. We have spiritual inclination, also spiritual sacrifice. So the question is, are our daily habits, social media, food, conversation, are they spiritual sacrifice or just material indulgence? Because if it is a sacrifice, it has to connect to God. So we can try and see whatever way we can add life is full of sacrifices. Different engagements are actually yagyas. Not just ritual, it is daily lifestyle of regulating mind, breath, and senses. Spirituality is incomplete without knowledge. So we need transcendental knowledge, gyan, right? And Krishna is giving that in this chapter. If we mechanically control without understanding our spiritual identity, then even if we try to control our senses, we'll not be able to advance. It'll be dry and unsustainable. So we saw the example of Dhruva Muni and Amrish Maharaj. Dhruva Muni was controlling senses, but not spiritually advanced. So anger defeated him. But Amrish Maharaj, he was actually relishing the nectar of devotional service. So he was not bothered actually. So this will bring us to the level of bhakti yoga, and that is ultimate freedom, ultimate moksha, highest level. Because now we are not controlled by our lower desires. We have given up our lower desires for higher spiritual connection. And that leads to ultimate peace and happiness, which we are looking for. Okay. So this is what I can share. Any questions, comments, any points anybody wants to bring?